Hello everyone, my name is Alondra Matias Alemani and today I'm going to be talking about my project titled Empowering the Future of Mountain Beginner Farmers. Before I start talking about my project, I want to talk a little bit about myself. Like I said before, my name is Alondra Matias Alemani. I'm in my fourth year at a bachelor's degree in animal science in the University of Puerto Rico at Mayagüez. Some of my future goals are a master's degree in marine biology or to apply to veterinary school, but I am open to any other experience to come. That is why I took this opportunity to be a part of this internship and to challenge myself. The agenda for today will be the introduction of the program, objectives, methodology, some future steps, and my personal experience. To introduce my project, I worked on the center of the island in the municipality of Ajuntas, Puerto Rico, where I had the opportunity to work with the beginner farmers Jose Ortiz and Evelyn Cruz, where they have approximately 2.96 acres of land where they cultivate a variety of crops, which will be mentioned in the other slides. The objectives of these projects were to help the farmer connect with relevant agencies such as NRCS, FSA, State Agriculture Department, also educate the farmer about the different conservation practices and the implementation of these practices, and to ensure that the farmer continues to protect their resources and communicate their knowledge and experience with other farmers. This project is divided into three phases, which are the methodology, which are the phase one is to connect and educate. So this basically is to work with the farm registration and different conservation practices, see which work and which don't. The second phase will be the farm visit, which are the resource inventory and the different recommendations. And the phase three is for the near future, which is the implementation, which is to receive assistance, implement these conservation practices, and share knowledge with everyone else. The first phase, like I said before, is to educate and connect the farmer. The farmer was informed about the agencies and the programs and the different conservation practices. Also, they were provided with the various necessary contacts to know more about this information. I also, with the help of a contact in RCS, I was able to provide the farmers with these documents that you see right here, which will help them in the future, which these documents are programs, contacts, and different conservation practices and more information about them. The second phase was to visit the farm, which we observed the different crops they had. They have coffee, plantain, oranges, lemon, pana, and yautía, and many others. Different kinds of different varieties of oranges and lemons. And some of the recommendations for the that I made to the farmer after seeing and hearing the farmer's concern. The first one is the nutrient management. I made this recommendation because they wanted to know more about the chemical properties their land has, and also which, how, and when to use the fertilizers, and what other crops are recommended for their land. Also, another conservation practice that I recommended was the multi-story cropping, because with this, we can promote habitat for wildlife, and also we can improve the yield of the coffee by being under shade. And the last one we see right here is the individual terraces, is to avoid erosion and the loss of nutrients. Another conservation practice we recommend is contour farming, because also it is to help avoid erosion. And the last one was vegetative barriers, because they communicate the concern because they have runoff waters, and they also want to avoid erosion coming from the road that's on the top of their land. Some future steps are to, this is just phase 3, and it's to receive assistance, which with the contacts provided, and specifically to receive assistance from an RCS. The second step is to implement conservation practices with the assistance of the agencies and material provided beforehand. They will be able to perform these conservation practices correctly, and also to share knowledge about everything that they've learned, the context and everything, to other new beginning farmers. And my personal experience, this project has been really rewarding. It has been an excellent opportunity to help this small family of farmers beginning to explore this. And with all this information that I've obtained from the internship, and help them with everything they perhaps didn't know, it also allowed me to visit a farm for the first time. I've never been. I've seen all the hardworking things they do, and it's been a great experience so far. And lastly, I want to give thanks to the farmers, Evelyn and Jose, who helped me, who gave me their farm to explore. And a big thanks to mano-Y-ola for giving me the opportunity to help these people, and to my mentors. Thank you everyone for your attention. If you have any questions, just let me know.
Well, good evening. My name is Carlos Samuel Espinosa Puig, and I will be giving my presentation, which I have titled The Troubles of Paradise. I would like to start with introducing the farm. It is a 116-acre farm of third-generation farmers. It is currently owned by Carlos Manuel Espinosa Avila. The resources that we aim to protect in the farm are air, water, soil, animals, and energy. The primary focus of the farm is the production of grade A quality milk, and the breeding, raising, and nurture of milking cows. The objectives of the practice is to maintain soil health by assessing the quality via soil samples, to identify and locate weeds and noxious plants, identify bodies of water to protect, and to control weed propagation and growth. The deliverables are to verify the characteristics of the soil using the web soil survey tool, see the status and health of the soil through soil sampling, identify weeds and noxious plants around the farm, and to control them, to control the heavily affected areas, and to fumigate the affected areas. From this practice, we expect more space for animals, abundance and high quality forage, a safer environment for us and for animals, including cattle and wildlife, and to control the growth and reproduction of weeds. Conservation plan. The first step is identifying the problem, which we just identified. The second is determine the objectives, which were to protect the bodies of water and to get rid of the weeds. Inventory resource. The catalog inventory of the farm is the cattle, trees, palms, fences, puddles, creeks, and concrete water troughs found throughout the farm. The condition of the cattle is great. They are in great health. If anything, they need more feed. That's why we are doing the practice. The trees and the palms are in healthy conditions. The puddles and the creeks could use fencing, so the animals, specifically the cattle, doesn't stomp around the water and dirty it up. Some fences need fixing around the mountain, and the concrete water troughs are constantly filled and need cleaning from algae every couple of months. The formulated alternatives that we thought that could control the weeds were to cut it, to spot burning, to place plastics so they could be in the course of a year be expunged, but that takes too long, and chemical control. We evaluated the effects of each practice that we could use on the farm, the effects that each practice could have on the farm and the surrounding areas, and the amount of working hands needed to do the practice, the other alternatives. The farmers decided upon chemical control due to the fact of the propagation of the weeds that were in high amounts, and to compensate over the lack of workers, and arrived to the conclusion that a drone would be a better way to implement the practice. And step 8 is to implement the practice, which were identified the areas that needed fumigation. And finally, step 9, to evaluate the plan, to see the efficiency of the practice and follow up and maintain the practice using other control methods. I would like to start with the definition of herbaceous weed treatment, which is the removal or control of herbaceous weeds, including invasive, noxious, and prohibited plants. The purpose of this practice is to enhance the accessibility, quantity, and quality of forage. This practice applies on all lands except active croplands where removal, reduction, or manipulation of herbaceous vegetation is desired. Apply herbaceous weed treatment to successfully regulate the target species and protect and improve the intended species. The farm used chemical methods to control the weeds. The big questions that I thought would be pertinent would be, why do weeds appear? And they appear due to overgrazing, which is when the cows eat too much grass and leave it at a level that it's easy for weeds to grow. Compacted soil could also be a cause. Bare land and water-deprived turfs are also common causes for the arrival of weeds. They spread through air, animals, be it by eating the fruits or by carrying the seeds, water, vehicles that pass through the weeds as soon as they are, I'm sorry, I lost my thought, that pass through the weeds area and are cleaned properly after passing through. When do you manage the weeds? Weeds need to be managed as soon as they are seen, because if you give them time, they will take nutrients from the soil and will grow at an alarming rate, and eventually will be big enough to start reproducing and keep making more weeds. And what is weed control? Which is the prevention and control of unwanted weeds and invasive plants. The effects of consequences on weeds, some have detrimental effects on animals or people. All weeds have detrimental effects on plants because they steal nutrients that other plants could use. They reduce the carrying capacity of the land for domestic livestock. They interfere with agronomic crops, cause the decline of wildlife population, and in some cases may even cause the erosion of our soil due to not letting grass grow below it. The benefits of controlling weeds and noxious plants is a safer environment for livestock, wildlife, and people, an increase in native plant species and diversity, an improvement in forage quality for wildlife and livestock, a strengthening wildlife populations, plant diversity, and soil water availability, and decreasing allergens and help prevent degradation of rivers and streams. These were some of the plants that I could classify throughout the farm. The first one is Lepidium virginum. The second, Heliotropium indicum, Senna occidentalis, Achirantes aspera, and Amaranthus spinosus. These don't cause problems. Some cause problems in cattle, but mostly just occupy space and are easily reproduced. The others are Mimosa pigra, which is easily like 20% of the weeds that are found in the farm. Cesium arvense, which easily propagates due to the high production of seeds. It can produce up to 200 seeds after it matures, and it propagates through the air, arriving to really far places and giving it a harder time to treat. Cucumis melo, which I'm not sure if that's one, but I think it is. Leonotis nepetifolia, Ancestrum diurnum. Ancestrum diurnum is also one that propagates very easily due to birds eating the fruit and sparsing it around the farm. A very dangerous plant found in the farm was Ricinus communis, which, if the seeds are eaten, could kill people or animals. Mimosa pudica, also known as dormilona, which only stays in the ground, doesn't grow that high, but really quickly takes the area. Asclepias curaçaoica, which is toxic for animals, especially cattle. And Cissus verticillata, which is found on a lot of trees due to being like a creeping vine. The chemical means used was Grasonex, which is a specialty herbicide that only targets broadleaf. The mixture used was of 6.2 liters of water, 4 ounces of surfactant, and 40 ounces of Grasonex. This herbicide does not require permits to buy or use, but needless to say, one should follow the guidelines and have proper and prior experience and use all the protective measures necessary, which are long clothing with long sleeves, thick gloves, boots, and an apron and a mask to ensure that you do not breathe anything. The drone was the way we implemented the practice. The first treatment was in the mountain area, and it covered 28 acres, and it took about 8 hours and used 50 of mixtures. The second treatment was in the plains area and covered 21 acres. That took 6 hours and used only 30 mixtures. The only stops the drone had was to refilling the tank and battery replacement so it could keep running. Time benefits and resource benefits of using the drone. It takes less time and less effort to use. It consumes 96.6% less water than a tractor. It uses an inverter generator to charge battery, so it doesn't emit as much gas as a tractor. Can be used to monitor livestock and fields and improves crop yields. Differences from tractors and other machinery. It is not as limited by the land. The only limitations that could be found would be tall trees. Other than that, it doesn't have problem with slopes or anything. It uses no fuels, oils, or lubricants, so it doesn't leak anything. And with like like tractors that could sometimes be damaged by a trip or by bad maintenance or years of use, it could be leaking and damage the soil. It could be used, the drone can be used for irrigation, pest control, mapping, fertilizing, and seed dispersal, and it does not compact soil. It is also a safer method of herbicide and pesticide dispersal due to the fact that you don't have to be with a I forgot the word, una manguera, with a pistol.
Hose.
A hose, thank you, no. with a hose so you can be at a safer distance while using the drone. It is also a cheaper and an efficient alternative to crop dusting. Uh, but a downside is it cannot carry or harvest crops. A soil survey map. I use the website to map the characteristics of the soil, and we found that the most common soil in the farm is mocha clay. And soil sample procedures to so they can verify the quality of the soil. It starts with an extraction of 5 to 10 soil samples free of vegetation in different areas, both in the plains area and in the mountains area of the grazing zone. You collect them all in a clean bucket, a different bucket for each area. You place the mix on 2 paper bags, fold the bag, and place that paper bag in another bag. You name the sample, which can also be just sample number 1 or a specific name. You place the sample inside an appropriately sized shipping box along with no other sample to avoid confusion or cross-contamination. Fill in and place the waypoint analytical info sheet inside the box. Place the money order of 1650 inside the box also, and send to the shipping address provided in the info sheet, and wait for the shipment to arrive, and then wait for the results in email. So sample 1, which is the plains area. The soiling area is mocha clay with 12 to 20% slope eroded. The characteristics we found, it is slightly acidic. It needs phosphorus, potassium, and nitrogen. But the loss of those nutrients could be due to the fact of the weeds growing and the noxious plants present in the area. The pH of the soil is slightly acid, but does not require treatment because it is not for cultivating. It is only for grazing. And the nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium can be provided by dispersion of oxidation factor. And sample 2 has the same problems, but has a slightly more higher acidic content, but depends on the area. It can also be solved. The nutrient problem can also be solved with irrigation, but the pH must be regulated to assure a maximum potential of growth for the forage, and it needs to be done with cal to neutralize the ground and assure better growth. The soils in the area are mocha clay to 2 to 12% slopes eroded, colina clay loam to 20 to 40% slopes, colina clay loam to 40 to 60% slopes, and Vega Alta clay to 2 to 5% slopes. I'll leave that for the end. That's a little video. Results of the plain area. The picture of the left is when we first started the fumigation, and the picture of the right is after a week of fumigation. It only took 6 hours, and the only waiting part of the job was just waiting for the soil to cure because of the effects of the herbicide. You never know what effects it could have on cattle. And it is much more efficient than tractor because on a tractor, you have, like I said, you have to use a hose, and it limits the amount of time you can be because you have to fill the tank, go to the area, irrigate, then go back, which is limited by the time of day because preferably you want to do it in the morning where there is no breeze. The breeze is limited, so it doesn't move the mix around unnecessarily, and it could be dangerous. And the second is the results of the mountains area. In the left is before we started the irrigation, and both photos on the right, it's when we finished. It's like a month now. I think it was a month when I took the pictures. Here are my references. And I just want to go back to see the video a moment. Sorry. And that will be the end of my presentation. Thanks for your attention. I would like to take a moment to give special thanks to Sara for helping me with the project, Heriberto for guiding me on on basically everything, and Pedro because he always has time to help also. And special thanks to Edwin Mas because of his book, not his book, his paper of malezas comunes en Puerto Rico, and in Las Vírgenes, I was able to identify all of my plants, I mean weeds.
Saludos, soy estudiante de la Universidad de Puerto Rico, el recinto universitario de Mayagüez, en el Departamento de Ciencia Animal. En el día de hoy nos encontramos en Vaquería La Casa Grande, en el pueblo de San Sebastián. Aquí es donde nosotros estaremos llevando a cabo el proyecto de conservación. What erosion problems and practices can be carried out in La Casa Grande Dairy Farm? We have present problems of erosion by water, or better known as gully erosion. Some factors that can be occasioned it are the waterfall and the movement of cattle. We want to start carrying out conservation practices that help reduce these problems without affecting livestock. Some of these practices can be the creation of terrace and the planting of vegetated barriers that help prevent erosion and are beneficial for livestock. Como podemos ver, tenemos un problema de erosión, el cual puede ser causado por las corrientes de agua y por el movimiento de los animales. As we know what is erosion and what is erosion by water, there are 4 types of erosion that are caused by rainfalls. These ones are sheet erosion, real erosion, gully erosion, and splash erosion. Y una de las prácticas que se pueden llevar a cabo para reducir la erosión es la creación de terrazas y la siembra de barreras vegetativas. La creación de terrazas, luego que las terrazas estén creadas, lo que vamos a hacer es que vamos a sembrar barreras vegetativas. Algunas de estas barreras vegetativas, el botón de oro, ella tiene muchos nutrientes que nos va a ayudar tanto para el suelo como para los animales, que es lo que queremos, que es reducir la erosión, pero también manteniendo a los animales con una buena salud y con un buen valor nutricional en las plantas que van a consumir. Some benefits of these practices for the vegetative barriers are to reduce the sheet and real erosion, reduce informal gully erosion, reduce sediment transported to surface water, and it has high nutriment for animals, and also can be replaced the portion of pastures that are given to the animals on their diet. On this project, the practice of creating terrace could not be done because of the limited time that we started creating the project and that the slope is very steep and short for creating the terrace. Maybe in other place that can be done, it will be done, but on this area that we were working, it couldn't be done. El predio que se encuentra a la parte posterior mía, el predio número 3, donde estaremos trabajando luego de llevar a cabo el proyecto en el predio número 2 y ver los resultados que se obtuvieron en este. The future projects in La Casa Grande Dairy Farm are to apply the practice of terrace in most of the areas that this practice could be done. This to reduce the erosion where it needs to be, and implement the use of buttercup and lemongrass.
Good afternoon, people of mano-Y-ola. My name is Caroline Sanabria Colon, and I'm going to present my presentation about of sequestration of CO2 using conservation practice. My God, my heart is so fast.
You're gonna do great. You're fine.
I'm from Salinas, Puerto Rico, and I'm currently presenting from Maya West. In the University of Puerto Rico of Maya West campus, I'm currently studying agricultural education and agricultural engineering. My introduction is about this project is of great interest to me since I was working on carbon research before, and I am still interested in all the field that it can encompass in agriculture. Using conservation practice in the field for CO2 sequestration is much more organic and time efficient. There are machines that sequester CO2, but they are not fast enough. And it is not cost effective since to build this, you must clean an area where there were already trees doing the same function, but in better quality. Why did I choose this topic? I'm sorry. In addition, I chose this topic because there are people who don't know the current problem we are having with the excess CO2 in the environment and what it causes. It was born in my educated and informing other people about the reality of what is happening with climate change, how we can solve it, and what method to use. By doing this, I start to create a multiply effect by giving people the information. The purpose is, well, what do I want to achieve with this? Well, I promote the information and educated people use conservation practice in our favor and how to implement CO2 sequestration together with conservation practice in our lives. The next question is, what did I get out of this? and organic future. Take a bunch of branches that influence agriculture, influence and motivated other people to achieve union and for a common good. The objectives are establish and understand the importance of CO2 sequestration. What is the effect when we capture CO2? Know the different methods that can be used, promotion of practice, perform and evaluated, starting with ourselves. Know the impact that agriculture has CO2 sequestration and know how can we be more efficient. What is CO2 sequestration? Well, CO2 sequestration is the removal of CO2 from the atmosphere. Lowering or reducing emission. This is for storage and use for aquatic ecosystem and terrestrial reserves, where agricultural soil provide a prospective way to mitigate increased CO2 concentration. What is the problem with the excess, the CO2 in the atmosphere? The current problem with the CO2 in the atmosphere is that there is uncontrolled increase. This contributes 30% in higher compared to other gases that together make 70% of I'm sorry, 70% in the 19th century. CO2 levels in the atmosphere were around 2080 ppm. However, now the concentration are around 380 to 420 ppm. This will cause the temperature to skyrocket if it goes above 450 per millions. What are the causes of excess of CO2 in the atmosphere? The natural sources of carbon dioxide, CO2, is decomposing plants, animal matter, natural forest, fire, and volcanoes. When it's occur naturally, it's a beneficial and part of the process. Continue the other causes of excess CO2 in the atmosphere. The main human sources of CO2 come from. Here we can see the burning of fossil fuels like coal, oil, and gas. Then this is the transportation and bad decision when acting and buying to buy. We continue to industry and deforestation. Most of the CO2 concentration comes from human action. While it is caused by human activity, it is much more difficult to control its emissions, causing extreme chaos, whether due to large clothing industry, object, car, and other factors. How can we solve this problem? We can solve this problem when reduce factory activity, Planting on a large scale reduces the use of transportation, consume energía renovable, change land use, sustainable consumer, mass planting of trees, consume local products, and others. There are machines, but even through the technology have room to reduce their cost. None has proven that they can be an efficient alternative. How can we use CO2 in our life? We can use in our life like food processing, like salads, fresh meats, soft drink and beers. The same way stoning animal before it's slaughter, used in the on-ground, extract petroleum, medical procedure, and make dry ice. What plant can we use to sequester CO2 from the atmosphere in the Caribbean? Some of the plants that we can use in Puerto Rico and in the Caribbean are hemp, coconut, palm, and bamboo. For example, the hemp, this plant sequesters between 8 to 15 tons of CO2 per year, and this can be useful not only to sequester CO2, but also hemp is a soil repair, a great industrial crop, and has a good agricultural potential. The coconut palm is capable of absorbing about 28 kilograms of carbon dioxide per year. This gives you food, oil, and more than benefit. Bamboo can we sequester 2 tons in just 7 years, and this is beneficial to implement in small space and harvest when the time is right. Also, in compare with other trees, the other trees only can sow 1 ton for 40 years. This picture is the model farm that implement conservation practice to sequester CO2. I'm going to explain the different zones and classification zones is used for planning. The zone 1, this zone, its function is to maintain the climate in the home with the application of mulch-in layer. The same way, this helps to reduce the temperature in the house. In the zone 2, in this zone, we can find the smaller domestic animals like chickens. Also, where mulch is applied by points and protection to the trees. In the zone 3, in the zone 3, I'm sorry, I'm so nervous.
You're doing great.
Great.
You are, Caroline. Just keep going. You're doing really well.
My laptop is freezing and I can, it's okay. In the zone 3, we can find the main crop and soil conditioning and green mulch. In the zone 4, we can find also forage and pasture harvesting. Okay. Here we can see the mother farm. And I'm going to explain how I'm going to use, a mi favor, practice conservation usando, for example, las tres plantas que mencioné. For example, the bamboo tree around the pond to reduce erosion, then coconut tree in contour farming, and hemp plantation in the center use row planting, not till farming, and various practices around. The conservation practices are seen like windbreak, livestock pipeline, roads, terrace, I'm sorry, silvopasture, and fences. What did I do for my project? Well, I continue to explain what I do for my project and with the community and with the well, I do this research to find out why people in small community don't know about what is currently happening with climate change. The 15 people who were willing and interested in learning more about carbon sequestration were asked 5 questions. The questions are: what is CO2? What is CO2 sequestration? What is the problem or causes of CO2 in the atmosphere? How would you personally solve it? Do you use energy conservation practice? Yes or not? Why? The response were completely mixed. There were times when people didn't know how to answer those questions because they had no idea about CO2 sequestration and energy conservation. Here I show you the 5 farmers. The farmer knew how to answer each question, being very comprehensive with their answer. They were dedicated and their responses were similar. Summarizing, they answer that they do know about CO2 and its effects. They define it as green gases. They use practice to minimize the environmental footprint. There are always ways to reduce emissions by substituting practice for others, such as changing the inorganic fertilizer with other organic products that require less quantity of, among others. They say that it can be solved if there is an onion and a multiplier effect if we can influence people. If we don't do it, Mother Nature will take care of cleaning and eliminating everything that harms it, regenerate itself, and then begin a new life cycle. People no farmers say some of people that I choose are students, stylists, bodyguard, and others. Many did not know that there was a problem with CO2 in the atmosphere and that it influenced much of climate change. 7 out of 10 people did not know the importance of knowing about it. Only 3 people answered me that CO2 promotes climate change since it's a greenhouse gas. One of the most interesting answers that came to me was from Felix, who is a student chemical engineering and agriculture engineer. He said sequestration of CO2 is recovering through chemical process or filtering mechanisms, amongst others. Personally, I will design bioreactors that have marine microorganisms growing in them that use CO2 from their metabolism, and I will put this bioreactor near place where the source of CO2 is very high. At the end of this little investigation, fun fact, I realized that there is a generational reflection, but in the agricultural field and in daily life. People over 27 years old prefer to call me to answer questions, while people from 20 to 25 answer me by text. This presentation is the one that was used to bring information to the people who were willing to learn about the subject. How mano-Y-ola has helped me? Well, help me understand and learn the application of conservation practice, the opportunity present to use most the be taken advantage and give me the maximum. That practice helped me to open other fields and to interact with people with whom I could practice my English. Thank you for everything.
Hello, fellow nature lovers. My name is Natalia Cañellas, and I'll be presenting to you production and conservation of native crops in Puerto Rico. According to the book Conservation Within Your Reach, created by a team of mano-Y-ola, the best way to keep our precious resources in good shape is to implement conservation practices that mitigate the damage already done and keep our ecosystem in the best possible conditions. These conservation practices are integrated by corporations like the NRCS, which is the Natural Resource Conservation Service, and the USDA, which is the United States Department of Agriculture. These corporations integrate the practices that consist of providing techniques that have been developed and scientifically proven by experts. The conservation practices implemented in these presentations and the land that we're going to see soon is crop diversification and nutrient management. Crop diversification consists of having more than one crop in the same land and just switching them around whenever the weather is best for them. And this helps the crop soil fight diseases and harsh weather conditions that may arise in the current land. Nutrient management is basically a project that consists of improving the nutrients that the crop is receiving efficiently to increase productivity and then also be eco-friendly with the land. Before planting, we did have to do some steps before we decided which crops we wanted to use and how we wanted to plant them. So first we had to review our natural resources. We had to make sure that the soil was fertile. We had to make sure that there was receiving enough water and there was enough of other flora and fauna around that would help and they weren't going to be endangering or bringing other species to the area that would endanger the crops. And we had to make sure that it was receiving enough energy in that space. And after that, we had to do a soil survey, which consists of checking if the land was good to be have crops being planted on, and to see if it was fertile for specific crops, or if it wasn't, or if it needed to be changed or improved by any kind. And then after that, we had to figure out of our results the amount of soil in the area that would be used for the crops. In this case, we just had to make sure that out of the 3 acres of land that we had planned to grow, how many of that we could use for planting. And after that, we just had to decide which crops to plant in the area. So what we planted were plantain plants and sweet potatoes. So the plantain plants will be planted during the spring to fall season. It's a warmer season. Plantains usually grow better in that type of season. And then so as we use crop diversification or crop rotation, we use the sweet potatoes in the winter because they fight, they're harder crops, they are stronger, they fight diseases easier, and they also are, since they're closer to the ground, they also fight harsh weather conditions or any type of weathering that could happen in that specific area. And the farmers' involvement, when we were discussing how we wanted to implement this conservation practices, we just wanted to make sure that it was something that people anywhere could learn and also implement on their own, even if it was like a tiny home garden. Like, we just wanted to prove that you don't need like a lot of space, even though like 3 acres is a lot. It's not too much for like a farm. It only you can only use a specific amount of soil and land of those. So we just wanted to make sure that our conservation practices implemented would help with the simpleness of fighting diseases and conserving the native species that we wanted to grow on that land. And technically the farmer will just prove that these techniques are just easy to implement even in your home garden. Our marketing method wasn't directly targeted towards a big marketing idea, or it takes a lot of production and profit from it. We just wanted to have a local farm that could serve to any local restaurant that didn't want to pay too much. And then being local, it could be a small transportation fee, or it could also just be for farmers market, or just around the neighborhood for people that don't have the same amount of resources as other and do want to add those products from those crops into their food and their meals. And just basically just trying to make food and everything accessible for everyone, because we all have a part of land, and we do want to make sure that we conserve it and we use it correctly so everyone can benefit from it, and not just only the people that have either control over that land or have the resources. We all have natural resources around us, and we can learn how to use them and improve how we use them more efficiently that benefit us and also the environment as well. So this is my presentation for today. Thank you so much for your attention, and thank you for the mano-Y-ola team for giving me this opportunity. Over there's my contact info, and let me know if you have any other questions or any comments. Have a great day. Thank you.